Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Naturalize Now, Unveiling New Data on Eligible Populations for a Reduced Naturalization Fee. We're going to give everyone just 1 minute to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone, on Naturalize Now, Unveiling New Data on Eligible Populations for Reduced Naturalization Fee. I'm Nicole Malaku, Executive Director of the National Partnership for New Americans, and I will be your moderator for today's conversation. If you would like to introduce yourself, please do so in the chat. Share your name, your pronouns, where you're joining us from, and something you're excited to take away from today's webinar. Welcome, everyone. As you all know, NPNA is a multi-ethnic, multiracial coalition of 70 of the nation's largest immigrant and refugee rights organizations with reach across 40 states. We work to advance immigrant equity and inclusion, and since our inception, NPNA and our members have been dedicated to enhancing equity and inclusion through advocacy for affordable and accessible legal benefits and robust capacity building across the nation. Together with our partners today, USC Dornsife Equity Research Institute, CASA, Cities and Counties for Citizenship, and Harris County, Texas, Community Services Department, we are proud to unveil data on the newly expanded eligible to naturalize population for a reduced fee, which went into effect just 2 weeks ago on April 1st. Next slide, please. On today's webinar, we have a great lineup of speakers who will share more about the new policy, dive deeper into the data, and share strategies around citizenship and outreach to assist our communities in applying for the reduced fee. Our speakers today include Ramya Reddy, Federal Policy Manager, National Partnership for New Americans, Dr. Manuel Pastor, Director of USC Dornsife Equity Research Institute, Justin Scoggins, Senior Data Manager, USC Dornsife Equity Research Institute, Pablo Blanc, Director of Immigrant Integration from CASA, and Austra Zapata, Naturalization Program Manager at Harris County, Texas, Community Services Department. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We'll have time for question and answers following today's speakers' presentations, and the slides, as well as our policy brief, will be circulated to all of our attendees joining us today. And now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce NPNA's Federal Policy Manager, Ramya Reddy, who will walk us through some of the initial findings and outline of the impact of this particular policy through her policy brief. So, Ramya, turning it over to you.
Thank you so much, Nicole, and thank you everyone for joining. I'll start by giving quick context to our conversation today, a top-line overview of the policy brief, what are the changes under the new USCIS fee schedule, and what do these changes mean for individuals that are waiting to become US citizens. I had the pleasure of working with USC team on the policy brief that covers data on the newly eligible population for reduced fees. In the next section, Dr. Manuel Pastor and his team will go over the findings from the study. But to begin with, around the USCIS fee schedule. As many of you know, USCIS is the agency that adjudicates naturalization applications. Over the last several years, the agency has struggled with lack of resources. It's extremely underfunded, overburdened by a significant number of immigrants that are waiting for benefits. This has resulted in backlogs, long processing delays that have been detrimental to immigrants as well as their families. The agency's funding, an estimated 96% of it, comes from filing fees of applications, and most of these fees had remained unchanged since 2016. To address this issue, last year, the agency released a proposed fee rule to cover the costs of doing business and to avoid future backlogs. The agency then opened this proposed fee rule for public comments. There were over 5,400 public comments that were submitted, many from community organizations, including a lot of you all who are on this call. In January this year, USCIS released the final fee rule, which adjusted fees, changed requirements for certain immigration benefits. This final fee rule went into effect on April 1st. The agency's decision to introduce the fee schedule did two things for naturalization. One, it increased the cost of naturalization for some. It also increased accessibility for many who could not previously afford to become US citizens because of the N-400 application fee. So we took this opportunity to look into how we can make naturalization more accessible in light of these new changes. I think many of you all know, and studies have shown, that the cost of naturalization has been one of the biggest barrier for green card holders, and this new fee is likely to increase that barrier for many. There are nearly 9 million lawful permanent residents that are eligible to naturalize, but only 10% of them naturalize each year. So lowering the cost of application will increase the rate of naturalization, but the most economically disadvantaged within the low-income category face much deeper challenges that cannot be addressed solely by reducing the fees for the application. One such example is where a study showed that the poorest of the low-income immigrants face the toughest barriers in accessing public benefits, which means it's much more difficult for them to access a fee waiver. So this results in many low-income immigrants not naturalizing, which is what we don't want happening. So there is a need for government-sourced alternatives to serve this low-income eligible population and to address some of the barriers that they are facing. Through the changes in the fee rule, there is a new opportunity for low-income immigrants. USCIS previously offered reduced fee for applicants with a household income that was greater than 150, but not more than 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. USCIS also offers a fee waiver for those below the 150% of the federal poverty guidelines who are receiving a means-tested benefit or face financial difficulties. Under the revised fee rules that went into effect on April 1st, two things happened. USCIS codified the fee waiver, making it less susceptible for challenges as we saw under the Trump administration. But now it also expanded the category of individuals with a household income between 150 to 400% of the federal poverty guidelines. So this expansion makes it more accessible to a broader range of individuals to benefit from the low cost of the naturalization application. We are likely going to see an increase in the naturalization rates from low-income households due to these changes. There are, of course, many other factors that are at play simultaneously. We continue to advocate and advance solutions to address other barriers such as adjudication delays, systemic barriers such as lack of language access, digital literacy, as well as agency funding limitations for programs such as the Citizenship and Integration Grant Program. But we wanted to take this opportunity to talk about what the positive changes mean to immigrants that are eligible to naturalize. So our policy brief, which you will see in a bit, Naturalize Now, Economic Equity and the Path to Naturalization, delves into the new eligibility criteria for reduced fee. Dr. Manuel Pastor and his team, including Justin and Ty, have led this project and helping identify who we need to reach out to, build resources for, and take them one step closer to becoming citizens. Under the previous rule, it was about 450,000 that qualified for the reduced fee, that is family income between 150 to 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. According to the analysis that was conducted for this policy brief, there are approximately 1.8 million from the population of those that are eligible to naturalize who now qualify for reduced N-400 fees. There are several reasons why this number is important, the most significant of it being citizenship is now accessible to that many more individuals. It expands economic equity for low-income immigrants. We know, and studies have shown, that non-citizen immigrants have higher rates of poverty, lower income levels, less education compared to US citizens. However, immigrants that have obtained citizenship show lower poverty rates, higher rates of advanced degrees, earnings that are nearly equivalent to US-born citizens. Naturalized immigrants also earn an annual income that is 8 to 11% higher than non-naturalized immigrants. So with the new changes, what the policy brief reveals is that it's more than 2 in 3 of the total population that's eligible to naturalize across the United States that would now qualify either for the reduced fee or the full fee waiver. This is our opportunity to address some of the gaps that we see in the naturalization trends. It's also a significant opportunity for us, local organizations, governments to promote full immigrant inclusion. What does that mean in a year like this? Usually ahead of elections, the naturalization rates tend to increase. We are in a complex political environment right now. It is an election year where immigration is the #1 issue for voters across the United States. We as immigrant communities can decide who will be the president of the United States. It also gives us the opportunity to shape immigration policy and other policies. So the study unveiling this new data for the eligible population for reduced naturalization fee was conducted to ensure that we have the knowledge and resources available to extend guidance around this new opportunity, around citizenship, around voter registration, and use this information as a tool in expanding access to citizenship so that our communities can enjoy social, economic, and civic benefits. These are some of the many factors, and there are many more that prompted us to take on this policy brief, but I will pass it on to the USC team to talk more about their findings and delve deeper into who will benefit from these fee schedule changes.
Thank you so much, Ramya. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful overview of the policy memo. And now it's my pleasure to introduce a longtime collaborator of NPNA, of course, somebody who really deeply believes in immigrant inclusion and whose team has been instrumental in this brief and many, many other immigrant inclusion initiatives across the country. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Manuel Pastor and Justin Scoggins from USC Equity Research Institute at USC Dornsife. Dr. Pastor?
Well, actually, we will start with Justin Scoggins, who will talk a little bit about how we generated the data, and then I will step in and talk a little bit about what the results were from that data. So let me turn things over quickly to Justin.
Thank you. Next slide, please. One more. So I'm going to start with just the context. As you just heard from Ramya, the new fee rule greatly expands the reduced fee for the N400 application. And next slide, please. And so what we sought to do was really estimate kind of how big is this population and some characteristics. Our estimates are focused primarily on the sort of increase in the population who are eligible for the reduced fee. So those between the 200 and 400% of the federal poverty guideline. There is also a marginal reduction in fee in total fees, including biometric fee, for those between 150 and 200% of FPG, but we don't focus on that because it's very small. Next slide. So the questions we sought out to answer are basically how many new people are eligible for the reduced fee, what states they live in, and we wanted to look at some baseline demographic characteristics, such as kind of birthplaces, places of origin, age structure, and race and ethnicity. Next slide, please. The data we used is drawn from different sources, but the first step is to estimate the eligible to naturalized population. And to do that, we use the 2021 5-year American Community Survey microdata from IPOMS USA, along with the 2014 Survey of Income and Program Participation. And the methodology we use, we've kind of developed quite several years ago and updated over time. And essentially what we're doing is that in the ACS, we don't know, like among the non-citizen population, who is of various statuses. So we don't know who is undocumented versus LPR or other lawful statuses. And in the SIP, the Survey of Income Program Participation, we can assess kind of who's among non-citizens undocumented. So we develop a model in the SIP and apply it to the ACS, which is a much larger sample, to estimate kind of who's undocumented, and then among the remainder of the non-citizen population, who is an LPR, based on simple measures of kind of time and country and whether one is married to a U.S. citizen, along with some other characteristics. We also use the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services 2024 federal poverty guideline thresholds, and apply that to the ACS, adjusting for inflation. Next slide. And you may have heard, you often hear about the poverty rate. And so there are kind of two different poverty thresholds out there. One are the poverty thresholds that are updated each year by the census and used for statistical reporting, like reporting on the the poverty rate. The other is the poverty guidelines, which are from Department of Health and Human Services. And they're a little bit more simplified in their calculation, and they are what is used for administrative purposes, such as eligibility for the reduced N400 fee. Next slide. And so in practice, I actually tested the results both ways, and it doesn't make much of a difference. But just to be try to be more accurate, we use the FPG guidelines, and this gives you a sense of what they are. So the 200 to 400% FPG, if you consider a family of 4, in most states that ranges between about $62,400 to $124,800 per year for a family of 4 in most states. And as you can see, it's a bit higher in Alaska and Hawaii. So that's sort of the income range for a family of 4 we're talking about. And it, as you can see, it varies by family size. Next slide. Some limitations of our analysis. One is that we're not estimating take-up. We're not trying to estimate how many new naturalizations we expect to see based on the new reduced fee, but just eligibility for this expansion, the 200 to 400% FPG. Another is that all of our data are estimates and subject to sampling and non-sampling error. The third limitation is that we're only using the FPG eligibility criteria to make estimates under the new rule. There are some other factors like that could influence, but I think we're basically sticking to the 200 to 400% FPG. The fourth limitation is that we did estimate immigrants who are either below 150% FPG or receive a means-tested benefit, or someone in their family does, particular family members, can be eligible for a full fee waiver. So in estimating kind of who is between 200 and 400% FPG, we sort of separated those who could be eligible for a full fee waiver based on receiving a means-tested benefit, and put them in that category. And in doing that, we only use certain family relationships and means-tested benefits that we can observe in the ACS. Next slide, please. And this shows you which ones we actually use. So the means-tested benefits we considered were Medicaid, supplemental Social Security income, and temporary assistance to needy families. And that covers the vast majority of the MTBs that would make someone eligible. And then in terms of family relationships, what we could actually estimate using the IPUM's ACS microdata are kind of 3 of the family relations and the ones that are highlighted there. So basically, if someone eligible naturalized adult is receiving one of those means-tested benefits themselves, then they're eligible for the theoretically eligible for the fee waiver. But also, if a child who's under 21 in a household who has a parent that is receiving one of the means-tested benefit, then they're also tagged as being eligible for the waiver. And then the third family relationship is a parent who is not receiving a means-tested benefit, but their child living in the same household then they are tagged as being eligible for the waiver. And I think those 3 categories cover the vast majority of those that could be eligible for a fee waiver. So that's a basic summary of our data and methodology. Now I'll pass it over to Manuel to go over the findings.
Great, thank you, Justin. And if you could move the slide, please. So in the words of our current president, when he was vice president and Obamacare was passed, this is he used a more descriptive word in the middle, deal, in terms of what its impact will be. First, I think it's really important to realize that previous research has demonstrated that reducing the fee does lead to a take-up. That is that once you reduce the cost of naturalization, particularly relative to renewing your green card, that people will move in that direction. Now, the rate of take-up will depend on whether or not community-based organizations and local agencies get the word out about the fee reduction and do the kind of outreach and preparation that is so key and will be talked about a little bit later. But again, this is potentially a very big deal. If you look at who was previously eligible, and then you either because they were below 150% of the federal poverty level, or because they had a means tested benefit, if you look at the folks that were in the middle between 150 and 200, and now look at the new 200 to 400%, that is 1.8 million individuals who are eligible to naturalize, meaning you've netted out the undocumented, you've netted out the H-1B visa holders, you've netted out student visa folks, and you're really just looking at people who are green card holders and who have been here a sufficient number of years or have a family relationship that would make them eligible. That's 1.8 million people who face a very different cost structure. So this is a big opportunity. Next slide, please. So this just shows you what that's kind of adding to the whole pool of about 9 million folks who are eligible to naturalize. Again, about 21% of the eligible to naturalize are going to fall into this category. And in general now, more than 2 in 3 people who are eligible to naturalize qualify for a reduced fee or a complete waiver under this new fee rule. So this is, again, a really dramatic change, and it's one that is a reflection of the great work that NPNA and its component organizations have been doing over the years, focusing in on this naturalization question. Next slide. And this just is another kind of view of this, looking at it's a 42% increase in the amount. This means of people who will be eligible for naturalizing face a different cost structure. So this means that community-based organizations need to step up, Citizenship and Immigration Services is going to need to step up, and local agencies such as one we hear from in Harris County are also going to need to step up to make sure that this possibility becomes a reality. Next slide. Where are the newly eligible to naturalize? But with this reduced fee, facing this reduced fee, large number, of course, in California. After that, Texas, Florida, New York, New Jersey, places where we have a lot of immigrants, of course. So this is very important in certain key states. Next slide. What's interesting is that while the big numbers are in places like California and Texas, the percentage increase in who was once eligible for reduced fee or complete fee waiver, and now the increase is much larger in places that are perhaps generally more recent receivers of immigrants, in part because many of those recent receivers are getting long settled immigrants who are moving from places like California and Texas and settling in places like North Dakota, Wyoming, Utah, by the way, is getting its own independent influx, Maine, etc. So while there are big states with large numbers, there are different states that can see a real big increase in the number who will try to naturalize with this new reduced fee. Next slide. The largest country of origin in this group of people between 200 and 400% of the federal poverty level, again, netting out the people who are already eligible for reduced fee because they had some sort of means tested benefit. More than 1 in 3 of the newly qualifying are from Mexico, but you can see that it's really a broad range of countries. Next slide. The increases, and again, looking at starting from smaller bases, bigger in places like for people coming from countries like Iceland, Finland, Singapore, etc. Next slide. In terms of those who are newly eligible, you can see what the age structure looks like. What the box is focusing in on here is the folks between 200 and 400% of the poverty level who are newly eligible for the reduced fee. You can see that there are some who are older, but a big share of those are 45 to 64 and also in the working age category of 30 to 44. Next slide. And now we can take a look at what this looks like ethnically. One of the things I think that's particularly interesting about this is that while even issues like being eligible to naturalize get portrayed as a largely Latino affair, in fact, a lot of Latinos were eligible under the earlier fee waivers. And what this is really doing is opening up more space for take up by Asian, Black, and actually European as well, immigrants. So this is, again, a big deal that will affect some states in a very big way and will have a big benefit, as was noted earlier, for many immigrants because of the benefits that do come with naturalization, the ability to participate civically through elections, the wage increases that we generally see. And so this is a welcome policy change, but now a challenge to make sure that the newly eligible population can take up on the opportunity. Next slide, which I think gets us to the end. Thank you. I'll turn things over to the rest of the presenters.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pastor. And once again, thank you to the USC team, including your colleague Rhonda Ortiz, who isn't here with us today, but here in spirit. And Ty and Justin, thank you again for mobilizing quickly to turn around this data and take a deep dive to answer the questions that we were all asking around who would this newly eligible population be for a reduced fee waiver. And now we're going to talk community perspective, Naturalize Now. What is the opportunity we have ahead to implement this incredible win? As Dr. Pastor said, this is a big deal. It's almost 2 million people. So we have our work cut out for us. And it's my pleasure to now introduce Pablo Blank from CASA, Immigrant Integration Manager. And Pablo, I'll turn it over to you to share with us what this looks like to begin implementing, as I know you've already begun this in some of your work with CASA members and with community that you serve. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And yes, we have been saying for the last 10 years, there are 9 million people who are eligible and they to naturalize today, and they don't do it. Right? We have been working hard on that and thinking that is not that citizenship is not fully an equity process, because the rich, the ones who can afford the process, naturalize faster than those who don't have the means to naturalize. And what this new reduced fee provide is an opportunity for 1.7 million people, as Dr. Pastor and his team show, to have the chance to naturalize, right? To reduce, finally reduce 9 million people. Probably 3 or 4 years from now, we will be saying there are 5 million people trying to naturalize. So this is a great opportunity that this new reduced fee brings. And I want to put the faces of the people that Manuel Pastor and his team, Justin and his team, their team was showing. Let me show you some faces of that. Andres, next slide. These are people who came to CASA some months ago trying to naturalize, and because they didn't have the means to afford the process. But when in March, we knew that this new reduced fee were coming into effect in April the 1st, we call them and we say, we can prepare your application, have everything ready, and file in April 1st using the new reduced fee. And they all show up, they apply, and they are probably 6 of the first ones trying to enjoy this reduced fee. But look at the profile of these people, right? So these are all of them full-time employees. They have jobs. They are school managers. They work in grocery stores, salesperson. They have 2 part-time jobs in childcare. So we need to think differently about who is the target of these people, because usually of this new reduced fee, when we think about fee waivers, we usually think on people who are not working, who are living a very hardship problem, financial hardship problem, because of a health issue, or they are living on Social Security. But this population is different. They are working. They have the opportunity now that they were trying to achieve for years, and now they have the tool to do it. Next slide, Andres. So what is the name of the game? For us is communication, right? Because these 1.7 million people that Manuel Pastor referred, they don't know really right now that the rule of the engagement changed, and now they can enjoy this benefit. USCIS is not doing any advertisement of this, and we need to, is our work to do this, right? So there is a Malay proverb that the turtle lays thousands of eggs without anyone knowing, but when the hen lays one egg, the whole country is informed, right? So that is a Malay proverb. So I think that we need to become more hens. And next slide, and probably a mix of both, right? So we need to be productive as the turtle, but also loud as the hen, to invite as many people as possible and to be able to naturalize those LPRs. Next slide. So to amplify our message, some strategies that each of us may start thinking about in our locations, in our states, municipalities, is issuing press releases for local ethnic media, partnering with the state and local offices like Harris County, that we will see how they will do this in the next. Host exclusive events for newly eligible LPRs, like citizenship clinics that are only for those who benefit from this reduced fee, in a way to call the attention of this new benefit to the media and to everybody else, right? So weekly posting in social media about the new profile of these eligible members. We need to tell people who are working. A family of 4 who is making $140,800, they are eligible now, and they may know that they are eligible for this fee. So we need to make sure that they learn about these benefits. Word of mouth, give 3 business cards to each new filer, and partnering with unions and employers. So some of those people that we were helping are union members, right? So, because now they have jobs. Before, fee waivers were not eligible for, union members were not eligible for fee waivers, but they are now eligible. They may be now eligible for this reduced fee. Next slide. But also we need to amplify our productivity, because if these 1.7 million people come to our office and we let them know about this benefit, and they come to our offices, we need to get ready for more volume. The volume may double, triple, or more, right? So we need to think about how to get more funding to increase our capacity, how to get bigger locations to do our citizenship clinics, how to get more volunteers, pro bono attorneys, etc. And also, there is another fee, as we were explaining at the beginning. There are new rules for the fee waiver, the I-912 form, that makes more clear that how you can access the benefit. So we also need to learn about that. And a discussion is that we are seeing, many of our organizations are thinking how to do the virtual applications, because now virtual applications will have a $50 discount. But that is only, virtual applications are only available for people who are not using the reduction fee, right? So we need to think, should we focus on in the newly eligible population and continue doing all paper, even if the other members have to pay $50 extra, or we will develop the strategy and the capacities in our organizations to be able to help a small niche of the population who may still come to our offices and will pay the full fee. That is a trade-off that we need to think, and we need to make a decision. Each of our organizations need to focus on that. And finally, we need to train our staff and volunteers on this new reduced fee eligibility. Next slide. So there is tomorrow, there is another MPNA webinar where another experts will be telling us how to do this work, and how to train our staff. So this is a great opportunity. We have 6 people ready to go on April the 1st. And since then, we have been helping more and more people. And the more people we know, the more they get excited, and they are stepping up and trying to naturalize. So this is a call for us to think differently, to think again our services and how we can make a space to this new eligible population for reduction fees. Thank you so much. And Nicole?
Thank you so much, Pablo. I love your analogy. We have to be a turtle and a hen to get the word out and work more productively to be able to help the 1.7 million people. And now, bringing this back to the idea of public and private partnerships that can really help us reach scale to implement this important milestone for those eligible to naturalize. I think we want to keep our eye on the prize of the kind of folks who have wide reach into community, including our local government partners. And so it's my pleasure to introduce one of our CC4C partners, Harris County. Austra Zapata is joining us today as the Naturalization Program Manager from Harris County, Texas. She is in the Community Services Department. And Austra, I'll turn it over to you to share a little bit about what you're doing and how you might be thinking about implementing this victory there in Harris County.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And I'll share a little bit about my personal story. I came to the United States when I was 10 years old with my parents and my 3 sisters. And just like my family, they struggle a little bit to apply for naturalization. One of my sisters adopted, and my parents have to hire an experienced immigration attorney to make sure that she was able to qualify for naturalization. So just like my family, Harris County has thousands of individuals and thousands of families who are eligible to naturalize. And we at Harris County had invested $5.8 million to provide naturalization services to the people of Harris County. And how do we do this? We did it through trusted community services agencies, nonprofits who are working, who individuals trust in the community. And they provide free legal services to our partners, to the people eligible to naturalize. Just in Harris County, we'll have over 281,000 eligible individuals to naturalize just in Harris County alone. So if we naturalize all of Texas, we have naturalized at least 10% of the country. So that's a huge, huge, huge impact. And our 4 community organizations are Baker Ripley, GERB, which is Galveston Immigration Project, Tahari Justice Center, and Justice for All Immigrants. Those are 4 organizations that are working really, really hard to provide quality and trusted services to the people in need of Harris County. We are also working very closely with Harris County Library. The Harris County Library has become like our hub, our hurdle place, where individuals who are able to naturalize can go. They can have access to all of our community partners. They can go for English classes. They have access to USCIS workshops, to USCIS resources. We are also setting up, just in Harris County alone, we have 26 libraries. So we are setting up Harris County libraries, and slowly, little by little, we're setting up library corners where people can go when they first walk in. We're being very purpose on where we're setting up the library corners. They're in open places. Actually, we can move the slide to the next one. And these are 4 of our community organizations that we're working on. In the next slide, please. And we are setting up library corners in entryways, and where they are very visible to individuals who are coming to the library. They can have access to the materials, they can have access to, they can take classes, but they can also have access to the questions, the naturalization questions. And in our website, in the Harris County Library website, they can also have access to all of our organizations that we're working with, access to resources, USCIS materials, access to Naturalize Houston now, where we're partnering with all of the organizations who are working on naturalization here. And there they can have access to all this information. The goal is to provide some wraparound services where people who are interested and are eligible to naturalize can have access to all this information free of charge. They can go to a workshop. We can partner them with an attorney who can review their cases. Some of the naturalization cases can be very complicated and require a little bit of extra assistance. And that's one of the things that we want to make sure that people have access to all of those services. And we are also partnering very closely. USCIS, we have created a relationship with our local USCIS. They have opened their doors where eligible applicants can go once a month, I'm sorry, and they can tour the facility. They can deal with their anxiety. They can have questions, and they can talk to a naturalization officer and answer questions. They have been very instrumental working along with the county to providing us with toolkits, naturalization toolkits, and different other materials. We are also partnering with them so they can go to some community events in their community. So they're there and they can ask questions, and people are not afraid to apply. We're just breaking down those barriers. And most important, the county is working, with CCC for Houston in providing training and resources, not only to our community partners, our organizations that we're working with, but access to all the thousands and thousands of people who are eligible to naturalize just here in Houston alone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Austra, and thank you for sharing the partnerships that have been impactful for you in reaching to the community. And it's no small task to reach 281,000 people in Harris and Greater Houston area. So I'm glad to hear of all the incredible partnerships. Again, all of the PowerPoint as well as the policy brief will be circulated following today's webinar, but we have a few minutes for questions. I'm going to start with Ramya. We have a question around what does it mean that the fee rule has been codified into law, and can that be impacted in the future? So Ramya, I'll turn this question to you.
Thank you, Nicole. Well, some of us saw challenges under the Trump administration that specifically targeted the fee waiver policy and the reduced fee policy. So the codification means that it will make it less susceptible to such challenges in the future, because it would administratively be very complicated to try to break off this new fee waiver codification policy. So in terms of the development, it's actually a very positive development, and I'm sure we will hopefully not see any challenges moving forward with this administration or the ones moving forward.
Thank you so much, Ramya. The next question is for USC Equity Research Institute, and one of our guests would like to know if we have specific data on African countries on eligibility to naturalize, as the African continent is huge, and also if we can find state-by-state information other than those listed in this PowerPoint. Where can folks go to find that?
I'm hoping Justin can put this in the chat while I talk, but there's a eligible to naturalize map that covers the entire country, and it looks at states, but it also looks at sub-state and sub-county localities that have an odd name, PUMAs, public use microdata areas, which allow us to individualize the data and be able to get into countries of origin, et cetera. Jen, what we list there is generally the biggest countries, but there's data that can be provided. And I was just actually sending Austra a note because the Houston Endowment has utilized some of our work to do a little bit more micro analyses to be able to guide some of your efforts. And so this data, we've got, again, a set of national level maps, but they drive down to the county, sub-county kind of level that people can use. And then we have done, at times, custom work for folks, particularly for efforts. And one of the things that I did want to highlight from that is people often forget about Black immigrants, immigrants from the Caribbean, immigrants from Africa, and about the special efforts, language, and otherwise that need to occur to be able to make sure that there's a high rate of take up on this new opportunity for Black immigrants, as well as for immigrants from Asia and Latin America and Europe. Justin, do you add anything to that?
Yeah, I'll just add that I did put the link to the maps we have in the answer, and I can't put it in the chat for everybody, just for the hosts and panelists, but the link is in the answer to that question for data for more states. And then in terms of more granular data by country of origin for African immigrants, unfortunately, the data we ran it's just one enormous category, Africa. It does appear there may be more some more detailed data available. We'd have to do run another table to generate that, but that's something we could do. And it appears like the categories that are available are Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, Sudan, and North Africa not specified. So there may be some more detail beyond, but not a whole lot.
Some of the South African, East African, and West African questions or countries are specified further in that the detailed version of birthplace. But those are pretty small numbers and not as reliable, but it's a really important issue.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pastor and Justin, for that information. The next question is for Pablo. What messages seem to resonate and work with community members who might be eligible for the reduced fee? The commenter says that sometimes people feel like it's an extra hurdle to apply for a reduced fee or a fee waiver, and they end up paying the full cost. What would be your message to community to really get the word out?
Thank you, Nicole. And I think that there is a population that really needs help, right? So they have the income in this country, the salaries in this country has been the same for 20, 30 years. And the inflation has raised a lot in the last 5 years due to the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, etc. So this is a population the relief, right? So when we call them and say, hey, this is a new opportunity, they jump immediately because they want to become US citizens, but they could not afford it. So now they can afford it. So in at least with these 6 cases, I think that they have not been reluctant and saying, "Oh, I don't need help," right? So they jump immediately with the message of, "This is a new benefit for you because you have been working hard and you have been impacted by the inflation and all the economic from the pandemic. But now the federal government has these benefits for you. You can naturalize now," and it was very well accepted.
Thank you. And also NPNA banner, Naturalize now. Thank you, Pablo. The next question is for Austra. Austra, what recommendations do you have for local governments who want to start, supporting or deepening their citizenship initiatives?
Definitely. We are very fortunate here at Harris County. We have the support of our commissioners and our judges. We have done PSAs. We're working on currently on PSAs. We are doing social media campaigns. We are sharing the toolkits that NPNA has provided for us, but they're very willing. They're very willing to speak to the community. So speaking to your local government, to your local judges, to your local officials to support this cause, to do different social media events, to do different news campaigns. That has been very helpful to reach out to the immigrant community, immigrant the Spanish-speaking channels also. Though that has been very helpful when they speak and they talk directly to the people that we have these services available. So I encourage them to support the organizations and to also provide additional funding to support these efforts.
Thank you so much, Ostra. We have a final question for the USC team. Do we have a way or a model to see how many new people would be eligible for a reduced fee each year, or would those numbers change each year? Could that be tracked? Maybe Justin, you can take this one.
Yeah, I'd say that our current estimates are using, so the American Community Survey, we use a 5-year pool of it. So it's 5 years of the survey combined, and that's important for a sample size to get more reliable estimates. So in a way, we're kind of looking at our current numbers are based on the 2070 to 2021 5-year pool. So in some ways, they're telling us kind of, given this new rule change, who's eligible from that average time period. And so this is sort of the total number, and I wouldn't, it would change slightly year to year. But I wouldn't expect it to change dramatically unless there are, big changes in the underlying eligible and naturalized population.
And I will just add that the flow from that into the naturalization process will be determined by the efforts of places like Houston and Casa and what the various organizations will do to be able to get this information out so that people become aware and see that there really is a difference, because people are also worried about it currently in this moment, any kind of tangle with government, and they need to have their fear reduced as well as have their fee reduced. I wanted to just take one moment, Nicole, to publicly thank my team for working on this, because as you know, you all approached me and I said, oh yeah, I'm sure we can do this. And of course, what that meant is I'm sure that other people can do this, and they proved to be possible to do it in a very short amount of time. So we really want to thank you all for your advocacy work to make this opportunity possible for our communities. And we really want to make and for bringing us into this request. And again, I really want to thank my team for stepping up and generating these numbers so rapidly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Pastor, and thank you to your entire team. Again, Justin, Ty, Lay, Rhonda Ortiz, all of you folks who are immigrant inclusion champions from your perch in academia that we so deeply rely on to get this data and then implement that data out in the field and reach communities so that all people can benefit from that. So really grateful for you and your team for taking up our request and moving so quickly on that. I'd also like to thank our practitioners, both Casa and Austra with Harris County Community Services Department, for joining us and keeping us grounded in the community perspective of how to actually implement this. And of course, Ramya Reddy and our NPNA team, who have worked around the clock to prepare all of the elements of today's presentation, as well as the policy brief, which will be sent to all of you. We will be thrilled to send this information following today's webinar to all of you to use and to implement in your field programming and community-facing programming. And so I want to thank all of you for joining us today. And we hope to be in touch. Please reach out to the NPNA team if you need support or information. We are always happy to help. And we have our work cut out for us to help as many people as we can who are eligible for the reduced fee Naturalize Now. Thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of your afternoon.